My wife was cheating on me after 28 years of marriage, so I exposed her in front of her boss, her lover's wife, our lawyers, and our daughter all at once. I ambushed my cheating wife. "Chris, what are you doing home?" Angela, my wife of 28 years, asked. She had just stepped through the garage door and saw me sitting at our kitchen table, less than 10 feet away. Her body was partially blocking the tall, younger man who was following her into our home. As always, Angela was beautiful. She has a striking 5'9" frame and a healthy 145 pounds. Her auburn hair is cut over her shoulders, and she always dresses professionally for work. Today, she was wearing a white blouse. I noticed that she had an extra button undone, and the cleavage between her spectacular 38 D-cup breasts was mouth-watering. Her black linen skirt highlighted her world-class legs, and the 3-inch heels made the delicious cheeks of her ass fill out the back of the skirt to perfection. I briefly considered Angie's idiotic question and responded just as stupidly, "I live here." A quick flash of irritation, which had been increasingly prevalent over the last few weeks, surfaced when she spat out, "Of course you live here. What I want to know is why you're home at 3:30 in the afternoon." I jokingly tell anyone who will listen that I had loved Angela since we first met. I had an appointment with 4 of the top people in her company, and Angela was their administrative assistant. She met me in the lobby and escorted me to the senior suite of offices for my meetings. 4 hours later, when she walked me back to the lobby, I took a chance and asked her out for dinner. The rest, as they say, is history. By now, Angie's gentleman friend had scooted around her and was standing at her side. I was half expecting him to smirk, but his very intelligent eyes showed signs of concern. Things weren't going as planned, I guess. I could ask you the same question, Angie. What are you doing home an hour and a half early? Angela and I have been joined at the hip since our first date. I take pride in having dedicated all my energy to Angela and our family. Through hard work, I established a small yet highly successful insurance brokerage firm. Angela, with the support of her employer, pursued higher education, earning a bachelor's degree in 6 years, progressing from a support role to human resources. She eventually assumed the role of HR head at the company's Hartford, Connecticut office. My unconditional love for Angela spanned almost 3 decades as I gazed at the person she had become in recent weeks. A stark contrast to the woman I knew, I consciously summoned calmness within myself despite the emotional turmoil caused by her recent actions. I resolved to confront her with a composed demeanor. When I flashed my signature crooked grin at Angie, she responded, "We came home early to talk with you." The use of "we" added a layer of complexity to the situation and piqued my curiosity. I asked, while looking Angie directly in the eye. A swipe took the opportunity to introduce himself. He stepped forward, held out his hand, and confidently said, "Mr. Harrington, Chris, I'm Michael Browner. I'm the new attorney at Kellerman & Sons, and I've been working closely with Ang for the last couple of months." While continuing to stare Angie down, I ignored his offered hand. I clenched the primal instinct to jump up, wrap my hands around his worthless neck, and squeeze until his eyes popped from his skull. Instead, I growled, "I know exactly who and what you are." For the first time, I saw signs of concern in my wife, and then she cringed when I followed up with, "Ang, you threatened to cut the balls off the last person who called you Ang. Why are you putting up with such disrespect in your own home from this pile of—" I was pointing toward a swipe. Angie looked worried and confused. By habit, she is a very careful planner. I was certain that she and a swipe had planned for every possible contingency for this talk, and in her mind, every I was dotted and every T was crossed. I was already, in her mind, a compliant cuckold, but a quick glance toward a swipe made me smile. I was fairly certain that his sphincter muscle was tightening and would soon be clenched in a knot as tight as my sphincter. A show was coming, and it would be worlds different from anything that Angie and her boy toy could imagine. I took 2 or 3 deep cleansing breaths and tried to push the rage and disgust that had been growing into a quiet corner of my heart. Let's get on with this, I thought to myself. It's time to throw them off stride again. "Why don't I make 3 drinks?" I offered. "We can talk in the living room." "A glass of wine, please," was Angie's subdued request. When I turned to a swipe, he seemed wary. He responded to my offer by saying, "Angela tells me that you enjoy bourbon and craft beer." I nodded and told him, "I do," as I got up from the kitchen table and headed to the bar in our family room. As I left the room, I heard immediate and urgent whispering as they moved in the opposite direction through the kitchen to the living room. A few minutes later, I met them in the living room. They were seated together on the sofa. I handed Angie a glass of her favorite Merlot and a swipe a tulip glass full of amber ale. I took my 2 inches of bourbon and sat in the armchair across from them. After raising my glass in salute, I took a small sip of the burning liquid. After returning the toast, a swipe took a sip of beer. He held the glass in front of him and seemed to study the color and carbonation. He commented, "This is one of the most complex amber ales I've ever had." "What is it?" "Pabst Blue Ribbon," I answered. A swipe's eyes flared with anger, and Angie looked confused and offered, "You've said that Pabst Blue Ribbon is worse than donkey urine and the crappiest beer ever made." She was halfway through her comment when she saw me laughing. She exploded. "You're such an asshole. We came home to have a calm talk with you, and you've been nothing but rude and condescending." I smiled and questioned, "I'm rude and condescending? I guess we really need to start your talk. I'm sure that I'm about to learn how to have a polite, uplifting, and loving conversation from my ever-faithful wife." Angie cringed and wasn't able to meet my eyes. A swipe took over and began, "Chris, we've come here to discuss—" I interrupted and said to him, "You had it right the first time." "Excuse me?" He looked confused, as swipes often do. "When you first addressed me, you called me Mr. Harrington before presumptuously calling me Chris. I greatly prefer, in fact, I insist, you call me Mr. Harrington." As his face started to turn red, I finished with a shrug and said, "Or sir." Instead of letting a swipe continue, I turned to Angie and heatedly asked, "What do you want to talk about?" When a swipe looked like he was going to respond, I said, "I'm talking to my wife. Just sit there, drink your complex amber donkey piss, and shut the fuck up." Angie was livid and exploded. "Your behavior this afternoon has been disgusting. I want it to stop now." I nodded and seemed to think about her request. I asked, "Do you think my behavior is better or worse than your behavior over the last 5 or 6 weeks?" "What are you talking about?" Angie was half confused and half worried. A swipe appeared to be holding his breath, anticipating my response. I could sense his certainty that their carefully orchestrated plan had unraveled. Gazing directly into Angie's eyes, I conveyed, "I don't know what infuriates me more. The fact that you allowed him to intrude on moments that were exclusively ours, or the way you belittle me, thinking I'm oblivious." Angela's face registered shock, and her eyes narrowed. In a subdued tone, she questioned the obvious, "You know, it seems like I have more friends at your office than you do." "I received an anonymous email from someone at Kellerman's 2 weeks ago. The email warned that you were having an affair and included 3 attachments depicting you on a picnic lunch at Middlewoods Park. The images featured hand-holding and kissing. I'm sorry that you had to find out that way." Angela was trying to decide how to continue when I jumped in and asked, "So, you want a divorce?" "No." She slid to the edge of the couch, leaned forward, rested her elbows on her knees, and passionately said, "I love you and don't want a divorce. What Michael and I are having is a short-term fling. He's new to Connecticut and hasn't made many friends. Once he's settled, I'm sure he'll find a regular girlfriend. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I signed up for a monogamous relationship with a loving wife. Instead, I found out that the woman I've devoted my life to is a slut and cum dump. A divorce works much better for my future plans." Angela begged, "Chris, just stop. I don't want a divorce, and I don't think you do either. This is a one-time fling and nothing more. I'm attracted to Michael, and I wanted a little extra excitement in my life. It's never happened before, it will be over soon, and will never happen again. I promise." I took a small sip of my bourbon and sat quietly for a few moments before responding, "First, your promises have no meaning. Everyone in this room knows you're a liar." Angela was about to erupt when I talked over her and said, "And second, why would I ever believe this is your first affair? For all I know, it's your 51st. Please, you need to stop and think. We've worked together to build our family, and now that Kelly is married and thinking about starting her own family, we can slow down and plan for a wonderful retirement in a few years. My fling with Michael will be long over and forgotten." I got up and, without asking if anyone wanted another drink, walked to the den and refilled my glass. I was confident that my poor manners were not lost on the 2 idiots in the living room. They were huddled together, whispering, when I returned. "May I say a few things, Mr. Harrington?" the swipe asked. "The floor is yours," was my disgusted reply. He gathered his thoughts before saying, "Angela is right. Our relationship is just a short-term fling. I regret that I led a married woman into an affair. I've never done that before, but we hit it off. As you know, she is a spectacular woman. Your threat of divorce, while understandable in the heat of the moment, will prove unwise over the long term. You've invested decades together, don't throw it away." Angela was initially worried that the prenuptial agreement her father had you both sign would cause her to lose many of her assets in a divorce if we were caught. I can assure you, as a lawyer, that a nearly 30-year-old agreement can easily be overturned. Laws change, legal wording becomes outdated, Any competent attorney will have the document laughed out of court, but even more important than that, you need ironclad proof of infidelity other than some mild, innocent public flirting that a few of our associates might have witnessed. I'm confident that you lack the evidence needed to enforce the agreement. As he concluded his astute legal analysis, I couldn't help but ponder how my wife had become so misguided. Addressing Angela, I mused, I can't fathom why you would seek legal counsel from a corporate attorney who graduated in the bottom quarter of his class from Texas Southern University Law School. Texas Southern consistently ranks as one of the top 10 worst law schools in the country. Interrupting a swipe before he could respond, I added, one of my many mottos is know thy enemy. Turning back to Angela, I inquired, what's your plan moving forward, Angie? She took a few moments to contemplate before providing an answer. Michael and I are going to spend the weekend together. I'll be staying at his apartment tonight, and in the morning we are leaving for New York City. We'll stay in the city tomorrow and Saturday night, and I'll be home on Sunday. Even though I knew their exact plans, the sheer audacity of my wife's statement tore my heart from my chest. I hoped she could see the crushing sadness in my eyes as I asked, so, not only have you shared your body with this piece of crap, you're also going to share our quarterly getaway weekend with him? We've gone to New York City 4 times a year, every year since we've been married. Memories of all the spectacular sights we've seen together, the award-winning Broadway plays, the concerts and sporting events. You've smashed all of the thousands of heartwarming memories. I don't know what's happened, Angie, but you've become as big a pile of shit as this. I was obviously indicating a swipe. Angela could tell I was devastated and responded accordingly. I didn't hear a single word she said as the voices in my head were screaming. Looking over at a very concerned swipe, I asked, is your wife okay with you fucking my wife, Christopher? Stop. Michael is a widower. His wife died several years ago. He would never cheat on his wife. Even a swipe had the decency to cringe at my wife's last statement. I smirked and said to Angela, unlike you. I continued immediately and asked, is that true? You're widowed? He quickly looked back and forth between Angie and me and hesitantly said, yes. I reached down and pulled a manila folder from the backpack sitting on the floor next to my chair. I opened the folder, scanned the first page, and read, Dr. Cynthia Browner, Emergency Department Surgeon, Ascension St. John's Hospital, Detroit. Dr. Browner has resigned from her current position effective June 22nd and will be moving to the Hartford, Connecticut area to join her husband immediately after her children get out of school. She will be working in a similar position at St. Francis Hospital and Medical Center in Hartford. If I wasn't so grossly unhappy about my marriage, I would have laughed hysterically at the look on Angela's face. You lied to me, she wanted to know. I couldn't help it, I did laugh. Can you imagine, I bellowed. A cheat and a liar lies to a cheat and a liar. What's this world coming to? Michael reached out and seized Angela's hand. Just before I could shout, get your hands off my wife, I realized I just didn't care. Anged, baby, I'm sorry, I did lie. I couldn't help it. You are so sexy and beautiful. I wanted you and needed you, and I lied so I could have you. He stood while still holding her hand. Let's go back to my place and talk. We'll go to New York tomorrow and have a great weekend. When we get back, we'll still have 3 weeks until my family arrives. At that point, you can be a full-time wife, and I'll be a full-time husband and father. Angela considered her options for a few moments before standing. She took a swipe's hand and turned toward me. After this weekend, I promise to give up Michael completely. I'll come home on Sunday, and I'll be the same loving wife I've always been. Angie and I stared at each other for a while. I wondered if she could hear my already crushed heart continuing to break. I've sat here somewhat politely while you both had the opportunity to tell me about your fling and how, in the long term, it won't affect my relationship with Angie. I'd like to ask that you both sit down and give me a similar 30 minutes of time to lay out the changes I see happening. They looked back and forth between each other and me, trying to silently decide what to do. I pushed the issue and said, the least you can do is give me 30 minutes of your time. Reluctantly, they sat. I've set up several Zoom meetings for us, I told them, as I pointed the remote at the TV and pressed a few buttons. I'd become an expert at arranging Zoom online meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. When the TV lit up, I said, Peter, Lou, can you hear me? I was talking to the two faces on the screen. We can, Chris, Peter answered. I continued, Angie, you obviously know our family attorney, Peter. I'd like to introduce you to his partner and my new divorce attorney, Lou Bear. Gentlemen, I'd like to also introduce you to corporate attorney extraordinaire, Michael Browner. Angie and a swipe were stunned as I finished with, Gentlemen, you have the floor. Lou immediately started in a no-nonsense manner. Mrs. Harrington, I am representing your husband in your upcoming divorce. Papers were filed with the court earlier this afternoon. I'd greatly appreciate it if you would retain an attorney and make arrangements to officially be served. I'll give you until the end of the day on Monday. If we don't hear from your attorney, we will engage a process server. We've initiated divorce proceedings, citing infidelity as the cause. We possess a comprehensive private investigator's report meticulously documenting your sexual affair with Mr. Browner, supported by audio, visual, and telecommunication evidence. I nonchalantly tossed a second manila folder onto the coffee table in front of Angie, eliciting a sharp slap that startled both individuals. It's a copy of our divorce petition along with the PI report, I informed the stunned couple. While a swipe reached for the folder, Angie shifted her gaze back to the screen. We will be insisting that the prenuptial agreement is fully enforced. I know that you are aware that every 2 years, all of your family's business and personal legal matters are reviewed. As part of that review, the prenuptial agreement has been revised to stay within the current state legal guidelines. As we have your signed and notarized signature for every update over the last 28 years, I'm 100% confident that the prenuptial agreement is fully enforceable. Per a vote last night by the Board of Directors of Harrington Brokerage, you are relieved of all corporate responsibilities, and you are no longer associated with Mr. Harrington's firm in any way. You will have 7 days to return your car to the company. Your company credit cards have been paid off and canceled. Your cell phone will be canceled in 7 days. Your memberships to Cedar Mountain Country Club and Lift Fitness are canceled. We have also paid off and canceled the 3 joint credit cards you have shared with my client. We have frozen your joint savings, checking, and retirement funds. Per the prenuptial agreement, we expect an 80-20 split of the cash and your cash assets in Mr. Harrington's favor. Per the agreement, Mr. Harrington will retain your house free and clear. We have asked the court to expedite your eviction, as you have a home that you have been sharing on occasion with Mr. Browner. We will argue that it is easier for you to move. We are asking the court to give Mr. Harrington full possession of the property immediately and give you 30 days to remove your personal property from the house. There will be no alimony, and obviously child support isn't relevant. There are many smaller claims that my client has made. Your attorney can explain them to you. Chris, have I missed anything? You've hit all the highlights, Lou. Thanks. The TV screen immediately went black. Just as quickly, Angie jumped to her feet and screamed, "Wait!" She looked at me and said, "Get them back. I have questions." I laughed and said, "That's not how it works, Angie. You'll need to hire your own lawyer to get your answers." "You bastard," Angie growled. "I'm going to destroy you." With a smirk, I looked at her partner in crime and asked, "Hey, a swipe, what does your near-genius legal mind tell you is the over-under on this destroying me in the divorce?" His silence had Angela sink back into the couch and curl around herself. I'll guess my smile was ear to ear. I simply held up the TV remote and waved it at her before pointing it at the TV. As the second Zoom meeting started, I said, "Jake, can you hear me?" "Hi, Chris. I've got a conference call that I need to jump on, so this will be quick. Browner, you are fired, effective immediately. Your personal items are being removed from your office and will be in a box in the lobby. If they aren't claimed within 24 hours, they will be thrown out. You will not be receiving a recommendation." Angela, I could hear her boss slow down inside. I looked over at Angie and saw her shaking. She was scared to death. "I express deep disappointment in your conduct as a senior member of my staff, which is utterly inexcusable. However, I acknowledge your 29 years of exemplary service. Regrettably, your position in Hartford is being eliminated. I extend an offer for the same position at our Albany, New York facility. You have 1 week to decide on the transfer and 30 days to relocate to Albany." The screen once again went blank as Angie wept into her hands, and a swipe slumped back into the couch. I deliberately wore a smirk as I glanced at a swipe. Upon catching my eye, his anger began to escalate. Despite being younger, bigger, and presumably stronger, his lack of intelligence worked against him. Just as a swipe was on the verge of exploding, I waved the remote once more, aimed it at the TV, and pressed a button. The screen illuminated, and I inquired, "Dr. Browner, can you hear me?" They both turned as pale as ghosts, their mouths hanging open. The visage of a beautiful blonde appeared on the screen. She spoke, "I've asked you to call me Cynthia." "Sorry, Cynthia, the floor is yours." "Michael, I've filed for divorce. Expect to be served over the next few days. The kids and I will remain in Michigan. I've been able to keep my current position at the hospital." As Swipe begged, "Cynthia, please, we can work this out. It was just a fling." The face on the screen looked disgusted. "I've been doing some checking since Chris contacted me. This is the 3rd job you have lost because you could not resist the lust and desire of other women. After I received the private investigator's report, I contacted him and requested he continue the excavation. Everyone was staring intently at the screen when Cynthia continued, Mrs. Harrington, do you know Alice Packer, Joy Lykel, Tori Jones, Candy Phillips? When Angie didn't answer, Cynthia laughed and said, I really don't expect an answer. The question was rhetorical. I know they are all associates of yours. Did you know Michael had flings with each of them? Can you imagine? You were just one of his many. Tell me where to send your crap, Michael. You're not welcome at my house. When the screen faded to black again, a swipe yelled, I'm going to kill you. He struggled to his feet as I slipped my Colt 45 from between the chair cushion and pointed the monster at him. A swipe looked like he was going to vomit, which was exactly the look I wanted. You've got two choices. A swipe. You can leave, or you can sit down and shut the fuck up. I don't care what you do, but if you come at me, I'm going to shoot your left ball off. I'm not sure if I was completely happy that he sat back down, but I was grateful that I'd be able to have my last planned Zoom meeting. I looked over at Angie. She was pale. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, and mascara was smudged around her eyes. She looked awful. I've been seeing a counselor for the last 2 weeks, I said. Angie groaned and cried into her hands. It's kind of funny. You cheat, lie, and share your pussy with this shitbag, and I'm the one that needs a mental health expert. I laughed and said, How fucked up is that? A few moments later, I told Angela. After I told Dr. Waters our story, she asked me a question that's helped me a great deal. She asked, do you understand the old saying, love is blind? When she asked the question, it was like a light going on in a dark room. I loved you so much that I would have never known you were a cheating whore if not for the anonymous email. My love was so strong that it overlooked your warts. Hell, in my eyes, you didn't have warts. I hope you know you'll never find anyone who will love you as much as I did. Angie continued to cry and rock back and forth on the couch. I'm going to continue seeing Dr. Waters. I think it's important to have someone to trust with your innermost thoughts and feelings, especially after such a devastating event. I would have never imagined it was possible for someone I loved so much to humiliate and disrespect me to such a degree. But the good news is, I'll get over the hurt and humiliation, just like I will get over you. I told Dr. Waters about my plan for today. She isn't a big fan of revenge, but thought the first 3 Zoom meetings were okay. She thought that you deserved some payback. She did try to talk me out of our next Zoom meeting. She thought that the pain it would cause me might take me back a few steps in my personal recovery. I've thought about it and will admit that Dr. Waters is probably right. The next Zoom meeting is going to do me more harm than good, but I don't care. This next meeting will hurt me, but it will fuck you up. As I held up the remote for the 4th time and waved it at Angie, she shrunk back into the couch in a panic. I pointed it at the TV and pushed the button. All eyes were riveted to the screen, and when the face appeared, Angie groaned. Oh no, please God, oh no! I love you, Daddy, said my daughter Kelly. I love you too, sweetheart. Why? Angie shrieked. How could you possibly be this awful to me? I heard it all, Mom. I've heard every word you and your boyfriend have said over the last hour. I've heard what you've done and what you plan to do. You disgust me, Mom. Sweetheart, please, this is a very complicated situation. You're too young to understand. It took Angela's breath away when Kelly responded, You fuck, Mom. I'm 26 years old, a happily married woman. Your situation isn't complicated. It's grotesque on one hand and pitiful on the other. I don't know what's changed, but you're selfish and totally self-absorbed. Angela was breathing deeply as she begged, Kelly, baby, I've been so lonely since you moved away. It was like I was living in a fog. I missed you so much. Kelly's face on the screen looked perplexed. So what you're saying, Mom, is that it's my fault you've become a liar, cheat, and crushed dad and are going to get divorced? No, that's not what I'm saying, and you know it. It doesn't matter, Mom. I think we all need a break from you. Kelly, Angela shouted, I'll come to Boston this weekend, and we can talk. I'm so sorry this has happened. I need to be with my baby girl. That's not going to work, Mom, for 2 reasons. First, you'll be in New York with your worthless, unemployed, newly divorced boyfriend. I'm not going to New York, Angela insisted. And second, Scott and I have planned a small, private celebration for our closest family and friends. We've rented a venue closer to Cape Cod. Baby, oh baby, what are you celebrating? Since you aren't invited, I'll tell you. I'm 3 months pregnant, and we'll be having a baby girl in February. Kelly, I'm your mother, and I insist that you invite me. That's not going to happen, Mom. I want my special party to be filled with love and happiness and not the lying, cheating, and disrespect that is consuming so much of your current life. Goodbye, Mom. For the 4th time, the screen went blank as Angela sat and cried. I got to my feet and tucked my pistol into the back of my pants. I'm going out for dinner and will be back in 2 hours. Looking at Angela, I said, You won't be allowed back into the house until the court responds to my divorce petition. I'm told that will take a week. Looking at a swipe, I said, "You've seen what I am capable of doing. I'm giving you 3 days to move out of the state. If you are still here on Monday, I'll have you crippled in a much more literal sense." After pulling open the front door, I looked back at the utterly defeated cheaters and said, "Enjoy your weekend in New York. It's supposed to be beautiful both days." Story 2. Emotional entanglement at work. My coworker and I are both in long-distance relationships and have been working in the same office for a while but never really interacted. We started talking a lot more last summer during our lunch breaks when staffing levels were low, and we've kept that good relationship since. She also pushed to get more tasks in my area of responsibility for her career path growth, which meant we started working a lot more closely together. We're both keen on dressing well and being well kept, so we stand out, especially as we basically sit together and eat together every day. Talking was easy, and I sort of saw her as a younger, albeit attractive sibling that I wanted to help out from time to time. We have our in-jokes, send memes and cute pics to each other on the job and off the job. It developed into a caricature of a work husband-wife. It would manifest in small gestures, such as bringing each other coffee, assisting with carrying and cleaning up after one another, and leaving humorous notes. Our interactions were more tactile than professional, involving leaning into each other when sitting on a sofa in the lunchroom, sharing food, and other similar gestures. Many people assumed we were a couple, and while we would laugh it off, deny it, and simply say, "Let them believe what they want, it's none of our business," our boss seems to harbor suspicions due to several coincidences. However, since our work performance is excellent by all metrics, the boss has no reason to address the matter. I suppose there are various reasons we started this behavior, but that doesn't change the outcome that it sounds and probably looks bad. I suppose at some level we're both aware of propriety and hold back when the office is full, but still, it's easy to relate to each other and talk because we're both of a different cultural background from the majority and share a lot of relatable history in our past, hence the little sister treatment and poking fun at her. In my defense, we've never touched each other sexually or kissed. While still inappropriate, it was never overtly physical. While we still chat in private off the clock, it's mostly been some memes and cute pics, checking in on each other when we're sick and whatnot. We don't meet up outside of work either, except for once when we went to a spot together because the company paid the employees to do something health-related. To be honest, I suggested going together as a joke, but she went for it. Again, nothing happened, but we did sit with our sides glued to each other by a 1.5-seater chair by the indoor pool and talked. While all that went on, recently we had an after-work event and planned to go to a club with a few of them after dinner, but everyone else bailed, leaving only us two after dinner and drinks. So she and I went and vibed like never before. Alcohol loosened us up enough to get tipsy, and we started talking about deeply personal matters for the first time. She started asking about our sexual past. We spent 5 hours glued to each other, with my arm basically permanently around her, minus toilet breaks. There was a lot of dancing and grinding, and there was a long moment at the end where we were pushed up against each other, with her face in my neck and arms around each other, that I was sorely tempted to eat her up. But I suppose reason won out. After ensuring that we both got home safely, I felt guilty and realized that my feelings for my coworker had evolved beyond the realm of friendship. Throughout this entire period, my feelings for my actual girlfriend had significantly cooled, but I didn't want to create further issues. Even if my coworker were to break up with her boyfriend, I didn't want to entertain the idea of starting any relationship on that premise. It might sound silly, but that was a boundary for me, I suppose. So, I called and apologized for overstepping and assured her that I would make an effort to maintain a more professional demeanor at work. Her reaction in return surprised me. In her view, nothing happened that night, and she didn't think we did anything inappropriate. I can't see that as anything but me popping a dream bubble and putting words into our fuzzy relationship, and I guess she preferred it fuzzy. She also repeatedly tried to say something to the effect of her being in a committed relationship, and that nothing would have happened, like 8 times. But things did happen, and the way we looked at each other like a piece of meat on the dance floor. Fair to say, if I saw someone I dated doing what we did, I'd break up instantly. It's not my place to speculate on her reasons and motivations, but I have a hard time seeing someone truly happy in their relationship, letting things get to this point. Also, I've never seen alcohol as an excuse for divergent behavior. It just lets out your truer self. Funnily enough, in the middle of the serious conversation, she made a comment as if in realization that I like her. I do vividly recall that she sounded quite happy about that, almost like an "I gotcha." TLDR, emotionally cheating with my attractive coworker, put a stop to it but still confused. Edit. Neither married nor engaged, no kids either. Though that's a topic my coworker and I have discussed a few times in private with joking references to our kids' children. For my part, long distance and other arguments have caused issues for a while. Last time I met my girlfriend, I was a hair's breadth away from calling it quits and breaking up with her. But while we patched up, things are still not exactly great. My coworker and I haven't exactly discussed our significant others with each other in any detail beyond the very basics, so I don't know much beyond my own thoughts and guesses, though I'll note that she said more to some of our mutual colleagues. I have my own speculations as to why we seemingly avoid this topic with each other. Neither of us had visited a club in many years, and to be honest, if I were there with almost anyone else, I would have wanted to leave immediately or not gone at all. It's impossible to say if she's the right person, as someone put it. It's light years too premature to decide. However, I did enjoy myself immensely in a way I haven't for a long while. Under different circumstances, I would have loved to explore the prospect of us further. I'm not sure about any further talk, whether she actually likes her boyfriend enough or not, and was just having a night's fun with someone she trusted is her business. Now that I can't delude myself about whatever I'm feeling, I genuinely hate the idea of being that sneaky person lurking in the background, trying to break a couple up. She's aware of my feelings, maybe not to the extent. I genuinely appreciate her company as a friend. But all the same, maybe it's time to go back out into this fucked up dating market again. I talked with a friend about this, and his comment was, "This is so fucked up, bro. I can only agree. Never thought life would be this annoyingly complicated." Thanks for joining us on this chapter. If you were moved by these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Don't miss out on the upcoming emotional roller coaster of relationships. Your support means the world, and we can't wait to share more compelling tales with you. Until next time, remember, every relationship has a story worth telling. See you soon.